Altoids. They're Altoids. They're mints, curiously strong mints. I like the cinnamon ones, and they come in these little tins, and these tins are very useful things. You can geocache with them, and it's trending to make little dioramas in these little tins, which is awesome because they're small, so they're a little challenge. Nice and cute. So for this month's Guild collaborative project where we all work on one project together, we all made little Altoid tin dioramas. We had a couple of Zoom meetings, and then we had some of our patrons and friends make them on their own time. This one is mine. I am doing the library at the Unseen University from the Discworld, the Terry Pratchett books. This one is Professor Pickles. He is doing a Dia de los Muertos sugar skull-ish skeleton in a graveyard. So he sketched out his design, and then he made his little three-dimensional tree cutouts out of 3x5 cards. And Aiden's lab is making a dragon setting a mountain on fire, and so he's got his LEDs for the fire so that it can light up the night.
They've always got lights and over-the-topness.
And dragons.
And dragons.
Yeah, they get very enthusiastic. They're very multi-talented, so they can do a lot of different things. So Aiden's got his light-up dragon. Professor Pickle actually soldered little hinges on his tombstones and his skeleton so that the tin can close, and then when it opens, they can pop up. So this is him soldering, which is fun. It's our first time having a solder for a guild project. The solder flows toward the heat, so if you put the pencil where you want it to flow, then the solder will melt that direction. Solder's just wire of metal that will melt at a lower temperature than the two pieces that you're attaching to each other, and it kind of acts like hot glue, but metal. There's Sam's design. You drew it up on your iPad and then
made a way better one.
Started making things. So you have a sunset over an ocean, and you made a bunch of fish. So right here, you're making your little polymer clay fishies.
I'm making a little mushroom village because mushroom village.
Yeah, you're into, what is it called? The goblin core? Is that what it is?
Yeah. It's basically just cottage core.
Cottage core, that's what it is, yeah.
Cottage core is sweet and
yes,
like baking in a cottage in the woods.
Yes.
And strawberries and flowy dresses in a field.
Yes.
Goblin core is like mossy rocks in a dark forest.
Covered in mushrooms and
mushrooms. Lots of mushrooms.
Bugs. Are there bugs?
Yeah, bugs.
Bugs are good. I like bugs.
And tiny jars filled with objects.
Ooh, objects. The big eyeball is Daddy's. Daddy had time to do one this time, so he's doing the monster in the box with the big eyeball. We still got some of the giant cabochons left over from when I did the dragon puppet. This is Daddy putting the teeth in his monster. So the teeth were made and baked prior to the tin being baked. He could shove them in there because they were nice and hard. Here's you making your seaweed, and Tyler painting her tin.
I did an ocean one, obviously, and I just made a bunch of fish.
Coral and
seaweed.
Seaweed, yeah.
Fun mushroom fact, that blue one is an actual real mushroom called the indigo milk cap.
Yeah.
It's really pretty. It's got really pretty blue gills and bleeds blue.
Okay.
So.
Wait, what?
What? Science adjacent with Tyler.
When it gets a cut or something, it'll
ooze blue.
Yeah.
I'm painting the sunset. I painted orange, pink, and purple, and then I used a big brush to blend it all together. And then I did ocean.
You painted all your little sea creatures. It was like a rainbow. You had rainbow fingers when you were done.
Yeah.
So you painted so many things, so many different little colors.
Yeah. I was gonna do sun.
Yeah, but you did clouds on the background. And I like the clouds. I think they're very nice. This is me putting together the library at the Unseen University. It's a magical library, and it connects to all the other libraries and bookstores everywhere in the multiverse. So I took photographs of a bunch of different libraries and bookstores from around the world, quite a few South American libraries, and one really pretty one in Switzerland. And I put them all together because I figured it's L space, so it would have everything in there, and I smashed them all together in Photoshop, and then I added some bananas because the librarian at the Unseen University is an orangutan. He was turned into an orangutan by magical accident. He used to be a wizard, but he likes it as an orangutan, so he stays that way. He won't let anybody change him back. So I put in some bananas here and there, and then I printed it out and cut it out and shoved it into the box and glued it in. Here we are mixing up some resin for Sam's for the water. So we have a 2-part epoxy resin, and we mixed it up and poured it in, tinted it with a little bit of alcohol ink after we glued the seaweed in, and then filled half the tin. And then we glued the fish so they'd be floating, and we just glued it with super glue, and then poured in another batch of 2-part epoxy resin. I'm pouring it from up high and pouring it slowly. It's supposed to help reduce the bubbles. And then once it was all poured in, we hit it with a heat gun, and that popped a lot of the bubbles. There was a little bit of bubblage because it gets stuck underneath stuff, especially on that first batch, because underneath the little grape stems for your coral and seaweed, yeah. And the little grape stems, I think, held on to the air a little bit. So we had a little bit of bubblage. Here's Daddy painting his awesome monster.
Whoa!
This is me making the librarian, the orangutan librarian.
Is there orangutan?
So this is how I always make figures, especially if they're going to be really tiny, is I kind of make like a stick figure, a blob figure, and get the proportions right and get the pose kind of how I want it. I didn't end up posing him completely until I had sculpted some of his features because it was easier to sculpt them while he was flatter. But yeah, I find it easier to just work out the proportions and everything in blob form. This for me is easier to just kind of rough sculpt it and then add the details later. And so once I had him detailed out the way I wanted, I shimmed him up with balls of tinfoil so that he wouldn't slump in the oven, because polymer clay gets softer when it bakes. And I stuck him on top of a marble. It's the Discworld, so he wouldn't be on a globe. So I stuck him on a marble. I kind of wanted him on a globe because a lot of times libraries will have the giant globes, but I think the marble works really well. It's shiny and cute.
It's like a magical orb.
It is. It's a magical orb in the magical university. Then I painted him with acrylic paints.
Why did you make him purple?
Just sort of, I wanted a darker color for underneath, and I like having some fun colors as shadows, purple and blue. Also, I was using the paints from your rainbow underwater scene. I was using the exact same paints that we had poured out, and I didn't want to get out other colors, and you didn't have any black or gray or anything. So, I painted the whole thing with just the rainbow. It worked out. I think he turned out cute. So now I'm dry brushing him. I based him dark, and then I kind of dry brushed several layers of other colors on him to give him the highlights and bring out the details. And then I dotted his eyes, let that dry, and then I dotted him with a pupil and let that dry, and then I dotted in a highlight. Here's Amanda's, the outside and the inside. She actually sculpted
this one.
Yeah, I like it too. She sculpted on the outside. I was gonna make mine a book and I didn't have time. Here's Greg's desert. His was cool because it was paper and you could close it, and when you opened it, it automatically sprang up. This is Grandma Pokey's campsite. I love the fire. It looks so cool. Aunt Mo used stickers. It's adorable, and you'd know it was hers from a mile away because she always uses those stickers. Here's Marnie's desert. This was the first time that she'd ever used polymer clay. I think she did such a good job.
Yeah. Marnie.
Here's Missy's forest. I love the roses. I love the contrast in the colors and the moon.
It looks so cool.
Here's Ashley's. We love outer space, and the little ship is so cute.
Spacey.
Noah made some characters based on his favorite tower defense game. Brittany and JR made the airplane flying over the distant road. This is Aiden's first one. He did the ocean with the little light. And then this is his second one. It's the dragon setting fire to the houses. Yep. And this is Professor Pickle's graveyard. He decorated the outside of his tin too. And the inside has all the little aluminum pieces that he cut out and soldered in.
I really like it.
Yeah, it was our first time using resin for something for you. I've used resin for work, but this was the first guild resin.
Oh!
We can
Evan
put the
and
word
Caitlin.
resin in the description.
Evan and Caitlin.
Here's Daddy's, his outer space-eating monster. Devourer of space. I love
No,
the
I did
colors.
think his mouth is space.
Yeah, and he even painted the back of the cabochon for the eyeball. He did the whole thing. Tyler's cottagecore scene, very graphic and simple and pretty. And there's the librarian in L space with his bananas. This was such a fun project.